This week, I try to make sense of this anime ruckus.
And I try to turn Garrett from a Bacca no to a Bacca yes. Hi, I'm Kyle.
And I'm Garrett, and we watch anime.
Garrett, this week we are going to be discussing a show that is geared towards a more refined taste. A show that is out of order, has a crap ton of characters, and somehow manages to stay light yet intense all at the same time. Our goal this week is to find out how many licks it takes to get to the center of this convoluted Tootsie Pop, and when it is fans should be able to get it. We discussed the mafia murder, train heist, action mystery anime Baccano with a big exclamation point. But before we begin, Garrett, what are new fans going to be expecting from this show?
Christopher Nolan's Memento on a Scarface level of cocaine.
That is true. This show is erratic. But then like when you get it, it's like those people who really get Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon. It's like, oh yeah, got it, man. If you really listen to it, you
gotta line it up with the Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, that's
the third lion's roar.
First step of getting Baccano, sync it up with Wizard of Oz, and you'll get it, man. So as we talked about, this just shows a lot to discuss, and like this is going to be a very interesting episode because I know you and I powwowed before we recorded this that it's going to be very difficult to explain this show.
Right.
I don't know. What do you think, Garrett?
So it's a time hopper.
Yeah.
So I know that, for example, like she'll never listen to this, so it doesn't matter. I love you, Mom. But she prefers very linear storylines.
Right.
Beginning, middle, end.
Mm-hmm.
And right from the very beginning, their intro card on the first episode has like 17 cast members. That's not an exaggeration. It's like 15 or 17 cast members.
I love it when you texted me and you're like, Kyle, I just saw all these names fly by. I'm not going to remember any of these. And I don't blame you. And that's the point. It's like the show has no expectations for you to get it, even through the first 4 or 5 episodes.
Right.
But when you get it, that's a good place to be at. So once again, we're talking about the show Baccano, which is Italian for the word ruckus. So it's like, and which is really, it's
craziness.
Calamity, the whole show. The whole show is big calamity at the same time. The manga came out the light novel came out in 2003 and is still running to the present.
Oh, wow.
So remember when we talked about light novels being a mixture of anime and writing, well, they're also kind of pulp books because they're not very long. In fact, the average length of a Baccano book is like 220 pages.
Oh.
And you can imagine how many words are per that. Like, it's probably like 20,000 words you got to get through.
I don't know. I kind of like that. I've never actually dabbled in the reading of the light novels, but I think it would probably it might be like a halfway entry point for people because it adds a little bit of substance. So people will say, manga is just comic books, man. That's for nerds. But everyone can get down. Well, not everyone, but most people can get down with reading a book.
Yeah.
So it's a book with a few pictures.
Not so bad. And it kind of gives you an idea of like what like the way the storytelling is kind of the way these books work, because the first season of the anime, I got to 7 episodes. I think you get it to.
Yes.
The show runs for about like 12 to 13 episodes, but that covers the first 22 books. So that just gives you an idea of like how much you get and why the storytelling is as erratic as it is.
How much do they stretch out a story in one of
Seriously, it's probably a lot like, Dan Brown books in which they tell you nothing for like 2 pages, and then it's like, and then the guy reached a hole. Next page. Let's talk about this other person for the next 2 pages. And it's like they did that style of storytelling for 22 books, and that got stretched out over the course of these 13 episodes. And it's still going on, which is great. But the author, he has said that he wanted to have no idea how the book would turn out and had instead had ideas for the characters and their motives, and then just put them in the room at the same time, and then kind of did like where he played chess on both sides of the board. He was just like, well, if I make this person do this thing, well, this person has to respond this way, but then this person's going to come in and see this. Well, if he's in that location, so you see that he kind of did that kind of way to make it work. But But yeah, it's tough to explain the timeline as we mentioned to you, but it really most of our story takes place on a train in 1931 called the Light Pussyfoot.
Sorry, I thought it was the Flying Pussy Bottom.
The Flying Dicky Button was the name of this.
Which, by the way, this from the start, even though I knew nothing was going on, this caught my attention. I know you are a huge Agatha Christie fan.
Oh, I love it.
Right?
Love it. Yeah.
I've never actually read Agatha Christie, not for any reason other than it's just hasn't happened. But I do love Murder on the Orient Express.
That's like the big one.
So concepts of mysteries happening in one place, a la Clue, a la Murder on the Orient Express, a la the show that we discussed when we did the mystery animes.
Yeah, like Another or something like that. Yeah.
No, it was the one where they're in the house on the hill and people.
Detective Academy Q.
Detective Academy Q.
Yeah.
Things like that. I'm like, yes, go on.
Yeah.
And so
closed door mysteries, all that
from
stuff.
The start, 1930s noir. So you've got the cool style. You're on a train, and I'm thinking, I'm strapping in. I'm going to enjoy this.
And that's the thing. I want people to listen. So the goal of this show, of our episode today, is for you out there not to necessarily hear what Baccano's about, but like to prime yourself on what to expect before you start. Because I'm glad we did this first, so that when people watch it later, they can be like, I'm confused. And we don't want you to bow out at that point, right? Because it's not expected of you to know everything that's happening as it's going on. The next thing to note is that the story is out of order a lot of times. And it has several narrators throughout the course of the same time. And but what serves is that the theme song that we were joking about before gives you every name and personality over and over again. So I was wondering why they did that. Like, had 17 people flashing across the screen. It was to help remind you who the heck you're watching,
right?
Every episode. So I don't normally watch the theme songs, but I found myself having to watch the theme song so that I could remember who people were.
Also, the theme song is incredibly bright and uplifting. And
really?
The show, not so much.
So we're gonna play it right now, and it reminds me of Tank from Cowboy Bebop. It's very much that like. It's very upbeat and it's very major chord and like even though people are murdering people, they're still kind of like smiling. They're like like Yvonne and Miria in the beginning.
Yeah,
who's like who's like rock paper scissoring to figure out who can be the Halloween costume, who gets to be Santa Claus to rob the candy store. But but it's still upbeat, and then it gets really dark over the course of the show. So it's wild. So let's start. Where it always should go is the very beginning, which is a very good place to start, right? And let's talk about the first episode, because I think this is going to be, if we're talking barriers to entry, the first episode is the first hurdle to cover. So let's just talk through what that was all about.
The first 30 seconds of the first episode introduce you to two characters that you don't see for 7 episodes. At least 7 episodes.
Right. And say to you, like, I wonder who... And they're like very, like... flying jalopy about their storytelling. They're like, I wonder who it could be. And I was like, ooh, could it be this character? This one seems like the main character.
Also, so this is hilarious. I think this is brilliant, and I'm not giving anything away because it's on the freaking title card.
It's on the title card, yeah.
So the opening sequence is there's this young girl who's in this library office, and she's got all these books on the desk, and she's climbing on the desk and reading these things, and this really creepy Solid Snake-esque character comes into the room and starts like,
hey, this is Snake.
And he's like, what do you
talk about the story?
And she's like, oh, I'm really entranced with these 1930s stories. He's like, it's interesting that you'd be entranced by that. I'm like, is it? I don't know what's going on. And
I was heavily confused, and I enjoyed this show. So
she keeps calling him the vice director, and so essentially you get 30 seconds of that, and then we hop into the story that she's reading. But the title of the first episode is The Vice Director Doesn't Say Anything About the Possibility of Him Being the Main Character. That's the title of the episode.
It's so like flippant about this story that like you have to go, and I remember reading, so I'll go to the boards later, but like it goes to like what is the main setting of our story? Is it New York? Is it Chicago? Is it a boat in 1711? Or is it a train in 1931? What is the setting? And she's like, I don't know, this one. And he's like, 470 points. And she's like, out of what? And he just doesn't explain it. He just says, he gives her a score, and then we move on.
I also just love that, like, the characters are, like, all... This is from Japan, right?
Right. This is 100% from
Characters are all Anglo-Saxon.
Very much. There is no Japaneseness of this story.
Right.
Everyone is either an American or a European who's been living in America for a long time.
The show is obsessed with the Italian mafia. They keep referring to the home country as Italy, and I'm just like, what am I watching?
Right. And they actually know more about the mafia than I do, and I'm part Italian. I'm like, whoa, you guys got to take your homework. Yeah. So, yeah, and so it gets very coy. It tries to tell you, like, it could be this setting, so maybe you should know that this boat is an important thing. You should talk about it Chicago, which is an important thing. And you're kind of getting the hang of it, like, this is a mafia story, so there's going to be a lot of violence. Everybody's got, like, a family they're associated with, so you're kind of getting that idea that, like, you got to care who the clans and those families are, and that kind of might set up the motives for you. But then all this, like, immortal shit starts showing up.
Right. There's a fair level of, like, mysticism involved.
Right, and it doesn't explain it at all. So you're like, okay, so, like, the best part, like, I remember it was one of the characters, we'll go through the characters a little bit because we have to talk through the theme song because it explains all the characters, is one of the main characters is a complete psycho, like, blasts this kid in the face and, like, lops his head off in the process. Yeah. And the kid's just like, and does, like, an Ace Ventura rewind play, like, drop words, and he, like, reattaches, and I was like, what is this? What am I watching? I was like...
There's this one character, I think his name is Charles or something like that.
Yeah,
But he reanimates.
Yeah.
And as, like, the blood is being sucked back into him, his eyes start going, yeah,
everybody who reanimates has, like, Party City googly eyes. They're like,
but we're getting ahead of ourselves, and I'm sorry for that.
I know, but that's the thing. For those listening,
am I getting ahead of ourselves or behind ourselves?
Yes. Is Garrett the main narrator of this story? Who is driving it? No, folks, it sounds like it's all over the place because this show is all over the place, and we're really only explaining half of one episode. That just shows you how much the thing jumps. But yeah, it's. I know that this show is supposed to be intentionally confusing, and so when I was reading boards, and I said this before, I was, like, going on Reddit and, like, seeing, like, what is this show? And I remember being, like, confused myself. And when I get confused, I check the internet. And what the board said was, don't worry if you don't know what's happening. And then that made me feel so much better. Like, the author does not want you to know anything. He doesn't want you to remember any of the names. He doesn't want you to know what's happening. And so I was like, okay, I can settle.
You shared that with me when I started watching the first episode. Now, I don't normally go back and rewatch an episode, but when we pick a show or you pick a show and I start watching it, I try very hard to pay attention.
Right.
Sometimes there's just things going on in life I'm not paying as tight as others. Right. I'll rewind. I'll go back. Did I not understand that dialogue? Was it a clever play or reference to something that I missed? But after you said to me, don't try too hard to understand it, and I just sort of sat back and I let it wash over me, I found it a much more enjoyable experience because it was kind of like the faith that I put in Lost. I would watch it and
Garrett, this is one of many Lost references we're going to have because this show is very Lost. It's like, previously on Lost. Oh my God, I found the plane. Where's this hatch? Oh my God, she's dying on drugs. Oh my God, Benny! So, yeah, you're very true. This is very much like Lost, but I also noticed...
Like you're saying, I like Lost, if I had no idea what was going on, I would just put my hand back in my popcorn and go, I'll find out eventually.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember watching people who were getting frustrated because they kept watching the first episode, thinking they'd missed something, like you had said, and it was frustrating them to no end. And I think once you relieve yourself of that burden, Baccano becomes a much better experience. So that's the first rule of watching Baccano. you don't have to understand anything probably within the first 5 episodes.
Yep.
You won't. You'll get it eventually. You just don't understand it.
One point, I'm looking at your show notes here, and you're telling me that the anime debuted in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
It looked much older and grainier than that.
Yeah, but I think that was intentional, right? Like, I think it also may have used art from the 2003 book. A lot of times they do that just to kind of like save themselves some time. They kind of like draw over the artwork of it. It also looks a little Cowboy Bebop-y too, right? Like,
yeah, the grainy nature, I guess, sort of lends itself to it.
Exactly.
Thank God there was no CGI.
Right, there was no CGI, so you don't have to worry about any of that. But there was still plenty of like awful censoring where like I didn't know if someone was dead or asleep. It would just be someone going like all you see is their eyes going, and like I think I see someone dead. Like I don't know. Like that's the problem with the censoring. But so the next thing to note is that, as we talked about, the setting is America, specifically New York and Chicago, but it's not centralized for the first few episodes.
Right.
The timeline is constantly jumping between 1930 and 1931, and there's a reference to a ship in 1700s, which gets referenced and gets brought up later in the series. But I think what's more important is, if we want to explain the show, is to talk about the title card, because it explains everybody that you meet over the course of the show. So if you watch the theme song, you're like, why are you showing me this? This is stupid. The music's kind of nice, whatever. But then the more you watch it, you're like, oh, I like Miriam and Ivan because they're the lovable people. So everybody knows, we'll help clear up who each person is, and Garrett, you and I can riff on these individual characters. So the first ones we meet are Miria and Ivan, and these characters are like the lovable, very clueless, chaotic robbers, and they love to rob the mafia. So these are the like chaotic good. If you were to do Dungeons and Dragons so much, like they technically have good values. They like each other. They don't want to hurt people for no reason, but they love just like starting stuff up. They have like no direction. They just and so Gary, talk me through those folks. What did you feel about them?
No, they provide comic relief when you need it. The show gets really like heavy-handed and sometimes very like introspective and a little like
up its butt.
Yeah, a little up its butt, and then they come in and they're like, oh my God! And you're like, okay, all right.
In my mind, they're like the Wanda Sykes of this show. Oh my God, that person just jumped off a building.
So I appreciated them for that. If you have no sense of humor, they're not for you. But they
emote their intentions openly and loudly. Everything they do is on their sleeve. There's nothing hidden or obfuscating about them.
Right. There is like this scene where they're like eating at the bar in the dining car, and they're like, we're eating because it's all you can eat. And the bartender's like, that's not true.
We're gonna go to the back because we heard gunshots. Or like they were like in the mining, and they're like I haven't found any gold, but maybe we'll try. And like they are just like they are honestly like Radical Ed.
Right. And everyone else is into panning for gold, and he refuses to. He wants to dig for gold.
And every time she reminds him how that's like kind of pointless, he's like, no, I got this. We're smart. I'm smart. I know this stuff. Another fun thing about the title scene for this, minus save for the fact that they wore like Halloween costumes and Santa gear, was when the Baccano title screen came on, they were robbing for chocolate. They were robbing like bars of chocolate. And you saw the Baccano chocolate bar, but under it was I love it because they were trying to avoid the copyright infringement of, there was a bar of Nosli Orange. I was like, wow, they really got around that. And it was like a purple wrapper. It's like, really, it's like singing a song slightly in a different tune. I love my
There's like a Bilky J. Like
4 Basketeers. Then we start getting a little bit to know more about the mafia, and what's really cool about this this story is that it actually gives away a lot of the story in like the title. It honestly really does. Once you figure that out, you're like, wow, it's kind of really clever. By the
way, speaking of all these characters, I just envisioned the author is sitting in like an idea room with like other people. It's like very hazy. There's a lot of cigarette smoke going on, and they're just thinking, what's a cool Italian name?
Well, let's start with the first one, which is Fido and Maiza.
Yep.
They belong to a mafia secret society called the Martillos, which is Italian for hammer. So
Firo Proceneso.
Proceneso.
They must hate their voice actors. They're like, I know what we can do for these native Japanese speakers.
Yeah, like there's a lot of I remember one that really stuck out to me was that there's a character you'll meet later whose name is Gerd, but they didn't even come close to saying the name Gerd. It was like Jodadidi. I was like, nope, that's not what that says. Those two names are not the same. Even by your Japanification rules. But yeah, we got them, and they're kind of like a secret society. So they're kind of like the underground mafia of the mafia.
Which one's that?
They're like the underground mafia of the mafia. They're like the
What, the Martillos?
Yeah, the Martillos, and like you'll see they eventually have like an order where they're like, if you have to shoot your dad, would you shoot your dad? That kind of stuff. So it's like really serious skull and bones nonsense for the mafia. The next people we meet is the Gondor family, which sounds like an ogre you make in Dungeons and Dragons.
I know, this is like the Nordic mafia.
Yeah, Dorky Morky, where are the Gondors? And
where was Gondor when Rohan fell?
Well, one of them's name is Luck. So if my name is Luck Gondor, I can only assume that person is a level 5 Nordic elf who is very good at thievery. So we got Luck Gondor, Berga Gondor, and Keith Gondor. And they're part of the Gondor family. They're just like a normal mafioso. But you kind of notice that Luck is kind of the smart one of the group. So
can you imagine naming all your kids at once? And you are Berger, named for your forefathers. And you...
Oh, Bostonians now? It's out your forefathers. I'm going to name you Berger. I just had a burger when I conceived you.
And you are Luck, for the fortune you will bring your family. And you're Keith.
I liked the Rolling Stones, and I thought it was a great name. So they're kind of like the normal mafioso that kind of gets beaten up with the world around them. But yeah, so they're kind of people you need to know. The next one, I don't know how you pronounce this name.
I keep thinking Salazar Slytherin, but it's Sizzlard.
Sizzlard Quates. I was like going like H to the Izzo, Sizz to the Izzlard. I don't know how this works. It's a lot of consonants. I'll show it here below. He is the weird mysticist of the group. Like, it's as if Full Metal Alchemist walked into, like, the Untouchables. Right. Like, what would happen if that...
Right. Perfect.
Like, he's like, if Edward Elric came into the Untouchables and, like, was able to do alchemist stuff at the same time as, like, Tommy Guns. And that's his stuck. He's looking for eternal life, and he wants an elixir that there's a guy named Barnes who's making for him. And this, once again, this is not spoilers. This is like the first 2 episodes where you learn all that stuff. And then you also meet Ennis, who is his hit woman. She does a lot of the wet work for Quate. So she is like the secret assassin that you meet over the course of it. She kind of looks like a Perfect Dark, or she looks like one of Jennifer Garner's Alias disguises. Like, she looks like that.
She's also a first-year associate at a law firm. Like, she wears a business suit.
Yes, she is a professional woman in a man's world. She wears lady sport. That's what she wears.
Exactly.
But she's also kind of a good person. But she's also like the coup today. I'm gonna take.
Well, we learn more about her a little later.
Mm-hmm. Then the next people we meet, and probably the most interesting, is Lua Klein and her like very homicidal boyfriend Lad Russo.
When we first meet Lad, he is dancing with Lua and expressing how bad he's going to kill her one day.
And Lua is okay with this.
There's other people he has to kill first.
Right. It's like, there's an order. You're the top tier of my wedding cake. And she's dressed in a wedding dress, and he's in a white suit for the whole thing.
Right.
And we learn why they're all dressed in white during the show, but I'm like, it was just so weird seeing that, like, these people dancing like, I'm going to stab your face. And she's like, okay. And that's, like, their relationship.
I actually didn't like Lad because he is just, like, pure psycho bad.
He's chaotic evil. He's what I would say in Dungeons.
It wasn't interesting to me because whatever could happen, he's going to do the worst possible thing.
Right. He is there. He's always, and this is why, like, I love using Dungeons and Dragons terms because, like, if he was chaotic evil, that means that he's evil. He has really bad intent, but he doesn't have any, like, morality or like
Mhm.
ties to anybody. Like he's part of the Russo family, but he even threatened to kill that guy who like raised him. He's like, I'd shoot you right now, but I guess I know you raised me and all that stuff.
Yeah.
He is a nut and a homicidal nut. And the next person we meet is Shane LaFlorette, who also looks like an assassin. We don't really know much about her. She has a knife. She's good at knives, I guess. That's her her bag.
Oh, is she the one in the evening dress
Yes.
creeping through the halls of
Yes.
the
She guts one of the cult members, so she's a pretty good assassin.
Yep.
And then we meet my favorite name of all anime, period. I think it's like the top list. Well, first off, you got Nice Holy Stone, which is not the official best name.
That's a porn name.
That's
But you want a better porn name?
no. Yes, it's the next one, which is Jacuzzi Splot.
Ooh!
I enjoyed Jacuzzi Splot part.
That was my nickname at high school cast parties.
And it's funny because his name is Jacuzzi Splot, and he's not even a cool character. He's like the whiniest little crybaby of the whole
I know that there's characters like this just rampant in anime, but
Right.
I loathe when the entire time someone's on screen you hear
And he's got like a Mike Tyson tattoo as well. Like, it's like, imagine a real bitchy crybaby.
Well, I mean, he is a member of the Brotherhood of Islam. But he came out of prison.
Spot was mentioned in the Torah. It wasn't in the Quran.
It was like
How'd you get
Muhammad
palmed?
Spot.
Yeah, it's.
I'm kidding. I'm sorry.
So we got Jacuzzi Splot. They're kind of like small-time thugs. They've been beaten around by the Russos, and so they're kind of hitting back a little bit, even though Jacuzzi's kind of a weirdo.
Mm-hmm.
And then we meet the Genoards, Eve and Dallas. Eve is kind of your like classic aristocratic princess sitting on a stoop, waiting for her beloved brother to come back. And her brother is kind of a d-bag who's like
kind of in between things at the moment because his family's got money, but he's problematic.
Yeah,
he's not really fitting in with any of the families.
He is like a real foil for the show, but he's not very present in the show. Like they make it seem like he's the most important character you need to find. Like many families are trying to find Dallas over time.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally we get to the guy the kid we were talking about, Cheslaw Meyer. Cheslaw Meyer? I don't know. It's a kid. Well, there's more than meets the eye. He's the googly-eyed immortal baby, I guess.
Shot in the face.
Shot in the face.
Not just shot in the face. His head explodes.
Like a can opener. Like he just went like zzz, and like the head came off. Like that's what it looked like. And so she's been hanging out on the train with the senator's wife and daughter. There's probably an ulterior motive, but we don't know that yet.
Right.
So now that you kind of got the gist of the 7 million characters that you'll meet over the course of the show, the big question is, what the ever-living F is this show about? And I would say, if I was to synopsize, if that's a word, this show, it is, imagine Pulp Fiction told in the narrative form of Memento, set in the time of Untouchables.
Yeah.
Makes sense? Like, Pulp Fiction is a lot of, like, people have all these motives, and they just keep bumping into each other.
Right.
And then because one person bumped into someone first, this happened. Even though they was trying to do something, they met another person who's trying to do another thing. And because of that bumping into each other over and over, it's kind of like the movie Crash, too.
Yeah.
If I have to say it. But it's that, like, narrative tale of everybody has their own intentions, and it's not until they interface with another person with different motives does where does that conflict come from. And it's constant throughout the show.
Yeah.
But and as I said, it's based on of Memento, meaning like, like Memento, all those like loving theater film kids were like, you should watch Memento. It's like a movie you watch backwards. Like that's what the show is. It's like in a weird timeline, and it's set in like Prohibition era, New York and Chicago. So the idea of the show is that, as I said, each of them have their own goals. Usually it's money. It's probably power. What's funny is that this train, like several people had the idea of robbing it at the same time.
No less than 3 groups are trying to rob the train.
Groups are trying to rob the train.
Actually, 4.
Yeah, 4
groups.
Mm-hmm.
You got the
Jacuzzi group, the
black,
we'll call them.
Black orchestra.
We got the black suited orchestras. We're not going to say that they're an orchestra wrapped in black robes.
The black suited orchestra. we got the white tuxes,
which is Russo's gang. They're kind of homicidal. We're going to get ours and we're going to murder a lot of people in the process.
We got the jacuzzi gang.
We got the Splots. Yes.
Splots. And then there's kind of a rogue guy who finds himself in a Mexican standoff in the middle of the train car.
And we also learned that another big thing that's kind of fallen, and I think is the central mystery of the show, is that they bring up the tale of the rail tracer, which is a kind of a story. Tell us, do you remember the rail tracer? Do you think you could?
I do. I didn't. So everyone is searching for something, and it's always power.
Right.
Some people don't even know what they're looking for when they're looking for it.
Like, this is a pretty train. We can probably rob it.
Right. But
by the way, Yvonne and Miria also want to rob this train. So that's 5 people. That's 5 groups. Yes.
So at the heart of it, though, is Kyle threw out a word a couple times. Threw out the word immortal.
Yes.
When the show gets into its mysticism and it gets into the alchemy, the discussion is essentially about a cure-all elixir that could give you eternal life.
We're basically back to Philosopher's Stone, Garrett. We were watching Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood in the middle of this mafioso thing, and I'm like, all right, let's do this thing.
And so I thought that's where the mysticism would end.
Right.
But the rail tracer, we talked about earlier, Miria and Ivan.
Yeah.
When they're at that dining car at the bar.
They're sitting with Jacuzzi, Splot, and Nice Holystone. And Cheselaw and the senator's wife and daughter, yes.
Right. And they're having a fun conversation, and then they tell the story of the rail tracer, and Jacuzzi goes nuts and starts running through the train trying to, warn people. So the rail tracer is this...
like a hobo ghost story, if you ask me. It's like...
yeah, it's a spirit that chases a train and starts killing people in every cabin.
And, makes the cars disappear, yeah.
Right, from the back to the front.
Right.
And it turns out this freaking thing exists.
And so that's the central mystery.
Though?
What was that?
Is it the smoke monster?
This is the smoke monster. And if they don't resolve the rail tracer, or if it's just something stupid like what Lost made it seem, like it's the twin brother of the island person, then I'm like, I'll be mad. But it's probably one of our cast members. It's probably one of our main 17. Yeah. And so, but yeah, it's Jacuzzi goes all the way to the back, because he's like, this is a real thing. And he sees both conductors are dead. So now we have got basically a runaway train. And there's a thing that's pulling people off of the train, basically. So, yeah.
It's very nimble, though. It has it's animated with a human-like form, but it also has sort of a gaseous state that it goes into when it reaches...
It also has claws.
Yeah.
It looks like it has claws, too.
Yeah. So, it could all be an illusion, though. We're going to wake up and it's a dream and it's the TV show Dallas.
Or it's in the mind of an autistic child like Satan elsewhere. And then I think, and I also, another thing, a foil that I really liked in this show before we kind of move on is that the newspaper company, which
that was great.
I loved that. So if you don't mind, I'm going to frame
this. Dive in.
Because I think you and I really we're just trying to get through this knot together. But so one of the main forces of the show is a newspaper company that's more of an underground information brokerage. Yes. So they basically, if you want information on to find someone or know where your target is or where money's being kept, you go to these folks and they're in this newspaper office, like a normal newspaper office. And the newspaper brokers say, if you want that, you have to pay for it like you would normally do, but you have to exchange information for us. So you have to tell us a juicy piece of information on top of the money. And so this gets them into a lot of trouble because a lot of people, including especially the mafia, are like, we don't want to tell you because then you're going to go, so what happens if they show up and they're like, hey, why did they leave? Well, of course we're going to sell it to them. Why wouldn't we? That's our business. And then people get mad about that. And so then when someone tries to show it to them, every reporter pulls out a gun, is like, back up. We know this thing. We know it's a dangerous game, but we're running a business here. And I just thought that was such a cool.
I thought it was very neat. And I kept thinking you could adapt that and make a show and call the show on HBO, The Newspaper Company. and have it be just about an information network.
That would be so awesome. And they're also like they're also like pretty Peaky Blinder about it. Like they'll be very happy to like murder things or like kill you if you get in the way of their business. But their code is very strict. Like they're not there to like hurt people. They're just like, we have information that we're selling. You have to give it to us so that we can expand our bank of information. And that's it. And there's no loyalty. We sell our information to the top buyer. I just love that.
Right.
So eventually the goal of the show, because we also talked about the different things. We got the Immortals, we have the Russo gang, we got the Gondors, we got even Amira. They're all kind of doing the same thing. The Splot gang, all those people are doing stuff. And it really gets nuts. But eventually you get to, and this is the second rule of Baccano, is wait until you get into your aha moment.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And what I mean by that is there will be a part in the show where you're like, I get what the show's about now. I get what they're trying to tell me. It's like a zipper that didn't fully meet just yet. But like when it's fully zipped up, you're like, oh, I get it now. And I get why they did it this way. And now I get what this whole thing is about. And it made the story so much more interesting. Now I want to see what's going on. I will say that for me, this happens. And I would say by episode 6, you'll get there. 5 or 6, you'll get there. Garrett, did you get to your aha moment? Do you feel like you get this story?
No, because while episode 7 gave us a lot of backstory that cleared up a lot of things, I was still deeply confused at the end of it.
Right.
So
they're still dropping hints. Like they're not giving it away all the thing. Like you really have to pay attention to
episode 7 absolutely pulled back a fraction of the curtain enough for you to go,
that's the story. I see what's going on. But there is like hints. There's also hints of like what's happening as well. Like if you like put some 2 and 2 together on it. But so you have not reached your aha moment.
I have not.
Okay, cool. Well, when they were done with this episode taping, I'm gonna have to explain to you what I discovered from the show.
Okay.
But I would say for most people, like if you'll get there eventually. I feel like if Garrett goes another episode or 2, he'll get to his aha moment. I feel like 7 kind of explains a lot of it away, and then you kind of go forward from there, and they explain a lot of what transpired to get to where everything is now. Right. And so that's kind of the goal, right? If you really want to enjoy Baccano, be confused, get little pieces here and there, and then hit that aha moment. That is how you watch Baccano. That's how you get this show. And I thought it was great. So for me, that was 5 to 6. You don't yet have an episode where you got your aha moment, but you said 7 cleared things up.
Yep.
That is an acceptable answer to me.
All right.
So the last thing that I think I really want to discuss with you is the availability of Baccano.
Okay.
Because I don't know about you, Garrett, but I like having all of my anime ready whenever I want it. We got lovely streaming services like Crunchyroll and Funimation that are exclusive to the anime. But if you don't want it, I feel like Netflix and Hulu has, the ability to, show all these great things that you can get that they've really invested their time in. Mm-hmm. And if all fails, go to Amazon, rent it, call it a day.
Yep.
I can't tell you where Baccano is. It is the hardest show to find. So much so that I want to start a new hashtag campaign called #FreeBaccano. I think Baccano needs to be seen.
What do you think the reason for that is?
I don't know. Let's take this a quick minute or two to speculate on why Baccano isn't shown. Yep. Because let's go through the classic reasons why. First, price. I don't think there's this is behind a huge studio. It's not like it's like One Piece in which the rights are so expensive.
Right.
That you have to make sure you want them. It's like trying to pay for Friends or The Office. Like you have to be willing to pay for One Piece if you want One Piece on your stream.
Lawsuit or disagreement between author and publisher, a la Dave Chappelle asking Netflix and HBO Max to pull his stuff because he's not happy with the contract. Maybe the publisher of the light novel is upset at the anime because the production company did some shady work on them, and so they're tying it up legally, and it's not worth the fight, maybe.
Yeah, so that's probably one of the first issues. The second issue is it didn't receive it was probably just faltered, right? That's the second problem reason. I don't believe that because I've seen multiple videos and multiple things that say how much they enjoyed Baccano, how much they want to see it again, and like they want to rewatch it. This show is one that you can rewatch. Now, once you get it the first time, then you can rewatch it and be like, oh, I saw where that was and what that was trying to tell me. So I don't think it's that either. right? So that's theory 2 that's out of the way. And the third reason I would say that it is that there's not a thirst for this style, right? I feel like if you go to Netflix, you're going to get one of like 3 different things. You're going to get the action animes. You're going to get like the futuristic kind of like sci-fi ones, or you're going to get the like movies that are reminiscent of like Spirited Away, or those kind of like movies that are that are like pretty and like high quality anime that you can watch as like a movie. Those are the kind of 3 things I see from Netflix. Is there space in the world for a out of sync mafioso train heist crazy thing that you have to like watch all the way through to really get? I don't know. What do you say as a new fan?
I mean, if you look at, just watch the Gabriel Iglesias show on Netflix, and if they're willing to put money behind that, there's certainly money to be had for Baccano.
I agree.
I like Fluffy.
Yeah.
I like Gabriel Iglesias, and that show is unwatchable.
Right. Or it's like, what was it? Bill Engvall had I liked his stand-up special, but it seemed like they did all the jokes that he did from his stand-up special in a show. And I was like, I know those jokes. It's like watching Dane Cook, and like he's like, episode 1, who and all the coats? Like it's like episode 2.
Right.
What is a beeline? Is it you draw a bee on the ground? Like it's like I don't want to hear these jokes again.
Speaking of sitcoms for men of a certain age, my father-in-law has recently discovered Last Man Standing with Tim Allen, and I actually enjoyed the show, and I watched the first 6 seasons when it was on Netflix, and he'll say, "Hey, did you see the episode about this?" And I'll say, "Yeah, I saw it." And then he proceeds to tell me the episode verbatim from start to finish.
You're like, I thought we talked about this.
Like, I acknowledged and said, "Yes, I've witnessed this." Anyway, so if they can find money for Fluffy and Bill Engvall and I mean, literally the amount of money Netflix spends on content in a year, and it's not just on them. We've got Peacock, we've got AMC Plus, we've got all these stupid streamers.
Yeah, I can imagine there's got to be room for Baccano. There's a lot of people that want it. So I think the last thing is, what are some things you're hoping to find if you were to keep watching? We'll ask you will you keep watching? What are some things you're hoping to learn? What are some mysteries you want to hope to learn if you were to keep watching Baccano?
Does Jacuzzi ever stop crying? No, in all seriousness, Jacuzzi Splot is an interesting character because he is a whimpering baby, but
he's a leader.
While he's whimpering, he's saying, "Don't make me kill you."
Right, he's a leader. He's 100% a leader, even though he's whining the entire time.
Right. So I want to figure that out.
Keep going. What are some other things?
I want to see Lad Russo get his comeuppance. And I want to see if Lua Klein has an independent thought.
I want to see how many people are immortals, I think is the big thing, because if everybody's an immortal on this show, nobody's an immortal on the show. You know what I'm saying? Like, if everybody's immortal on the show, you're basically just like constantly whacking each other, and like it just blood keeps coming back. You keep googling it and come back.
And, and I know that we danced lightly around the immortal topic in an effort to not give away full cow, you know? But you're right in that there's a lot of people. So we talked about how there's the Martillo family, the Kimura family, the Runarada family.
Yeah.
But what the immortal thing does is those are all crime families right now. And the immortal thing goes back 300 years.
Right. So
so there are people from there that are now out here.
Which is such an interesting storytelling part. If you think about it, right? Like, these people live in 2 universes of motives and thought, right? You got people who've been living for hundreds of years and really just want to keep doing that, right? That's their jam. They don't care about anything else. They, in fact, think you're all children, is one group. And then you got the people that are the live fast, live free, die young, steal, rob, rape, do whatever you need to do to get what is yours and enjoy life. Those 2 things do not mix well together. This is like water and oil. So I'm really interested to see what happens when one learns of the other. So the Mafia learns about the Immortals. What does the Immortals think more about the Mafia? The Mafias hate each other, but if they realize there's people that like have this thing that's even better than like material wealth, maybe the idea of eternal life, would they just all decide to turn on them as well?
Because right now the mafia thinks they're chasing down power through traditional means of information, threat, killing. But if you've got an opponent you can't kill,
right, then what do you do?
Yeah.
And it just seems like there's a lot of ones that don't want to say that. Because another foil you learn, and this is, I think this is like episode 4, so I don't think I'm giving up anything. But one of the things the immortals can do is they can like drink your milkshake, and the milkshake being in your body.
They do a mind meld.
They do a mind meld. So all you have to do is they grab someone by the head, and it like sucks them up like a like soup through a straw, and you're just like, and you just kind of like.
There's no special grip. It's in a very stop hitting yourself type of way, where you're just like,
you're Heismaning them, and then they end up going into your hand. That was a weird foil. It's like, oh my god, that's wild. So I guess you can kill immortals, and it's like, honestly, if you then think about it, being immortal is basically just like a really deadly game of tag, because immortals can kill each other that way. It's like,
but I think you can come back, because when you drink someone's milkshake, you're doing it not just to kill them. What you're doing is you're consuming their knowledge.
Their knowledge, yes. You learn everything that's going on.
Forceful way to consume their knowledge and their experiences.
And you can also give as well by also Heismaning them back, and you can give them your knowledge as well.
I thought I picked up a few clues where someone is under the belief that if you kill an immortal, the people that they sucked up might come back. And I could be way wrong. I thought I picked up 1 or 2 clues to that.
Right, yes. And so they're constantly like trying to touch each other and drink each other's milkshakes. It's like, it's a very like nasty game of tag, and a really cool foil. And you learn about all that stuff that I said by episode 7. You'll get a better sense. So the next question is, will you keep watching, Garrett? Will this be a show that, now that you've gotten a kind of a hang on it, and you're not quite gotten yet to your aha moment, would you at least try to get to that point so you can see if you want to keep watching it?
Ooh, I don't know. It's a wild ride. I am going to say no.
Okay.
I don't think so.
Okay. What's the reasoning for that?
There are so many things about this show that I should like, but it's also so out there that I'm not in a place where I want to grasp at straws at the mystery of things. So it's just not. If it hit me at a different point in my life, I think I would feel differently about it.
Right. But were you a fan of Pulp Fiction, by the way?
Huh?
Were you a fan of Pulp Fiction and like how that story went?
Yeah.
Okay. So I figured this would not be your tea to see like everybody kills each other through the whole course of trying to get theirs, and then like it just.
Well, it's kind of funny because they're Tarantino films are similar in a lot of ways, but there are some Tarantino films that I am huge on.
Yeah.
And there's other ones where I'm like, I am not on board with this.
Well, what's funny is that speaking of Pulp Fiction, I feel like even in Miria are the Honey Bunny group. That's like in the diner going like, I have to pee. Hold on, honey bunny. I have to help.
So I think what I said to you holds true is like, if this is the volume turned up to 10, like in terms of insanity, in terms of Baccano or Ruckus, I would love it at an 8. Okay. I think it's just a hair too fast for me, not to comprehend, but to interest me.
Right. Okay. Well, I'm going to continue watching this because I just started this one, and I picked this show because I heard so many good things about it in like this narrative form, so I thought I'd do it. So I'm going to keep watching it now that I kind of get the idea of it.
If you watch all 16 episodes and you like it, will you go read the light novel?
If I can find it. I mean, it's just like Baccano's so hard to get. It's easier to get bootleg liquor in the 1920s than it is to get a copy of Baccano light novel.
If you pay for the remaining episodes, feel free to email me again, and I'll.
Sure, that's a good deal of a completely legal and financially backed decision that we can make.
Well, I'm just doing research for the court case #free Baccano.
It's like Citizens United, but it's like #free Baccano versus Toei Animation.
If I don't know what I'm fighting for, how can I fight for it?
Do you hear the people singing
Singing the song of Baccano.
It is the people who... I can just imagine that. And I'm like swinging a Baccano flag, like, yeah! So
it's the Genoards, it's the Koozie, it's Blizzard.
It's Scissor Quarter. Red, the color of Nasli orange.
White, the color of their suits.
Covered in blood. So now that our shenanigans are kind of coming to a close, next we're going to go into what is known as our Weeb and Noob score. So we kind of covered the Garrett might not watch this. I'm going to watch this, but the question is for the Weeb and Noob score is like, how important is this to your overall diet of anime? Whether you're a fan who really wants to watch as much as they can, just need more information on what's the best kind, versus a new fan who's like, I'm trying to figure out this thing. Is Baccano one to watch? And so it's not means good or bad. We've kind of like just listed that based on our willingness to watch it again. The Weeb and Noob score is basically priority. Like, how much are we putting our name behind this show? And for that, I give this my Weeb score of 8. It's a little pedestrian, I know, but I feel like its accessibility is really hard. That's the first thing. Like, if you can't find it, then I'm not going to tell you have to watch it. 2.
How did you hear about it?
It just in Weeb circles, you know. I kept my ear to the Weeb circles and just kind of like wondered what this thing is. The name doesn't explain it. The none of the posters do. Like, I feel like even with Puella Magi Madoka Magica, like I kind of got what was happening just by looking at the title and the screen and everything like that. With this, I'm like, I had no idea what was happening.
I love that. I love that in the Weeb universe, there's got to be a message board where there's like, so there's like Reddit, 4chan, 8kun, and like 12 Weebs. Like,
yes, Garrett, and you need a very specific code to get into 12 Weebs. Let me tell you. So I would say for me, while it's pedestrian, if you can get your hands on it, go for it. It's a really great ride for not a lot of episodes. The storytelling is really interesting. I will say, you have to have a primer first. That's the part that's killing me. What's hitting my score is that I needed like a strategy guide to watch this show, and that bothers me. And once I got the strategy guide, I loved it. I love this show so much, but the fact that I had to do all that really bumped it down for me, just because like I know there's gonna be a lot of weebs out there who are gonna want to dive in as rough as they can, and the first 2 episodes aren't going to tell you anything, and you're just going to quit. So for me, that's where I think is priority. It's quite a ride. Know what you're getting into when you do it. It's a great show. It's a lot of fun. It's very action-oriented. Like, there's a lot of great moments in it. And when you finally get it, it's actually kind of a fun ride. But how much are you going to dedicate to that, you know? I don't know. Right. So, Garrett, for your noob score, what do you give Baccano?
I give it a solid 7. I think
not bad.
I think that the style is there. I think that the intrigue is there. Mm-hmm. I think you got to hold on to your horses and hang on for a ride, and that's sort of what knocks it for me. It's a little self-indulgent at times, which is a knock for me. Some of the characters are really like wonderful and like brilliant and make you really interested. Other ones seem like there's just too many guys in the room, and it was wasted air that they could have used on more interesting characters. Of course, I've only given it 7 episodes, so I understand that if it's been running for 17 years now in light novel, everyone's going to get a chance to shine. Also, I will say, though, if you're going to run a light novel for 17 years, perhaps you should have wrapped it up a little while ago.
Well, it's like imagine like you're getting 12 words a book. It's like, and then Shislaw came next time on John Baccano. Ah! It's the Dragon Ball Z format of attention building. You know what I would say? This show is diet Cowboy Bebop in terms of coolness. Is it cool? Yes.
Yes.
Are you indulging in coolness like you would with Cowboy Bebop? No. Does it have all the elements of a great mafia story? Yes. Does it get watered down with a lot of weird storytelling and mysticism? Also, yes. It's good, but like sometimes it punches itself in the crotch, and then you're like, okay, well now we're back to square one. So
right.
I know that this is probably going to be the most confusing episode for fans out there, but it's all in all to say that like the reason why we picked the show is because we think it would be worth it for you to just consider it, or you just know it exists. Mm-hmm. And now that you know the rules on how to get into it,
right.
Now you won't be as burdened by it. So hopefully we've done you a service if you're interested in watching the show.
Mm-hmm.
So, as much as I feel like the ruckus has calmed down here in this room, it is also important to hear your thoughts. Did you even try to watch Baccano? Like, was it even easy to find? If you did you like it for its storytelling? Did you like it for its setting? Did you like it for its action or its comedy? Please let us know in the comments below, because we really want to continue the conversation, especially for one such as a hidden gem like this show. If you like what you heard from the show, make sure you check us out on Instagram at Wombo Podcast, as well as anchor.fm/Wombo Podcast if you want all of our amazing audio. You can also find us on Twitter at Weeb_noob, and also give us a 5-star rating. We want people to watch this show, and don't be a baka about it, be a Baccano. But before we end, Garrett, what is some final thoughts on the show Baccano?
I think I've picked up a new nickname for myself, Hot Tub Splat.
So we're going to be...
Me and my boy Coos are going to go hang with the lady.
That too, and so we're going to drink our elixir of life, suck people through our hands, shoot people in a train car on our pussy light foot. All in all, I wish you a great... See you next week.
Hey, Gary, y'all.
Unless you're just anxious to have your head ventilated, you should tell me what your name is. Just relax. Speak nice and slow.